Okay, so I want to start today with an image. It's the standard graph of personal growth that I think we all kind of have burned into our brains.
The famous hockey stick curve.
It's the hockey stick, exactly. It's a line. Starts at the bottom, goes up and to the right. It's a mountain climb.
Right.
You start at the base, you struggle, you learn, you heal, and then you reach the summit. And you're done. You're fixed.
It's such a seductive image, isn't it? We love the idea of a finish line. It means the hard part is over.
But the source we're diving into today basically says, takes that map and just throw it out. Because the path of a healer, and really anyone trying to grow, isn't a straight line. It's a tide.
It's a really powerful shift in thinking. We're looking at a text called The Rhythm of Healing by Arie DuBrall. And her whole argument is that healing is tidal. It has an ebb and it has a flow.
And if you fight that rhythm...
Well, DuBrall says if you try to be high tide all the time, you're not just going to get exhausted. You're actually working against your own growth.
I have to admit, my first reaction to that was, resistance. Because I like the high tide. I like feeling productive, feeling like I'm helping people. The idea that I have to pull back feels like, it feels like failing.
And that's the modern condition, right? We equate doing with being.
Right.
But DuBrall is suggesting the descent, that inward turn, is just as active and necessary as the flow. It's just, the work is internal.
Okay, so let's unpack this rhythm. The text starts with the part we all know and love, the flow. This is the wave coming up on the shore.
This is when everything is just clicking.
Yeah.
The ideas are coming. You're helping people. It feels almost effortless. DuBrall calls it the season when wisdom flows outward. The work is visible.
It's the I'm crushing it phase. But then the text pivots. She writes, and then there are seasons when the tide must recede. I love that word must. It's not optional.
No, it's not. The tide might recede if you have a bad week.
Wow.
It's physics. The water has to pull back to gather itself for the next wave.
But let's be real. In our world, when that energy goes away, we don't think, physics.
No.
We think, what is wrong with me? I'm losing it.
We pathologize it. We call it a slump, a block, maybe even depression, though that's a whole other clinical thing.
Yeah.
But so often, it's just the ebb. It's the descent.
And DuBrall connects this descent to a bunch of older traditions, which I found really helpful. It makes it feel less like a personal failure and more like a part of a bigger pattern.
It universalizes it. Yeah. She mentions the tarot, specifically the Hermit card. And people see the Hermit and they think, lonely guy in a cave.
Right.
But the Hermit shows up after a period of success. He withdraws to integrate what he's learned, to find his own inner light before he takes the next step.
She also brings in Carl Jung, and this part gets a little dense. She talks about individuation. What does that actually mean?
So individuation is Jung's term for becoming your whole authentic self. And to do that, you have to deal with your unconscious stuff. Think of it like this. In the flow, you're out in the world using your persona.
The mask. The me. That's a good employee, a good partner.
Exactly. The me that smiles and hits deadlines. But while you're doing that, you're shoving a lot of other things, fears, desires, weird dreams, into the basement.
Okay.
The ebb or the descent is when you have to go down into the basement and sort through all that junk. Jung said, you can't be a whole person if you don't.
That sounds terrifying. Who wants to go into the basement?
Nobody. That's why we resist it. DuBrall calls it the dark night of the soul. It feels like a loss of self because we're so identified with that outer persona, the person who is useful to other people.
So how do we know when this is happening? Because, I've had days where I'm just lazy. How do you tell the difference between a sacred descent and just doom scrolling on the couch?
That's a great question. The text says the descent is about listening, not numbing. And she says the call to turn inward usually arrives in one of two ways. The first is the quiet call.
The whisper.
The whisper, yeah. It's subtle. The text calls it a persistent sense of misalignment or a low hum of discomfort.
I highlighted that phrase, low hum. It's not a crisis. It's that Sunday night feeling empty after a party, even though everything was fine.
Exactly. It's your inner self just tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, something's not quite right here. But what do most of us do?
We turn up the volume. We get busier. I know I do. If I just answer 10 more emails, the hum will go away.
But it doesn't. And if you ignore the whisper for too long, you eventually get the scream.
The rupture.
The rupture. This is when life forces the tide out. A trauma, a loss, getting fired.
And this is where DuBrall shares her own story. She was living that high tide life, doing all the right things, but dancing around her inner work. And then at 30, She gets a cancer diagnosis.
And the text says the illness it stripped away distraction. It's a brutal way to do it, but when you're fighting for your life, you can't maintain the persona anymore. The dance just stops.
She calls it a vast, unavoidable space demanding attention.
It's the universe pulling the emergency brake. The tide will go out. You can go with it, or sometimes life drags you.
So, let's say we're there. We're in the ebb. The water is gone. We're on the muddy sand. DuBrall calls it the season of shadow. What are we actually supposed to do there?
Well, first, stop trying to force the water back in.
Mm-hmm.
The work is looking at what's been left behind on the sand, the stuff you usually ignore.
She calls it shedding layers that no longer serve. It sounds like decluttering your personality.
It kind of is. It means actually listening to your body instead of just overriding it with more coffee. It means asking, what do I actually need right now? Instead of what should I be doing?
There's another point here I think is so important, especially for anyone who identifies as a helper or an empath. She talks about figuring out what belongs to you versus what you've just absorbed from other people.
Oh, this is the empath trap. It's huge.
Oh, wait, I thought being an empath is a good thing. Like feeling other people's pain is compassion, right?
It's resonance, but it isn't always compassion. The text has this amazing line. Sensitivity without integration leads to overwhelm. If you're just a sponge soaking up everyone else's anxiety and sadness, you're not actually helping them. You're just drowning with them.
So the descent is where you learn to bring out the sponge.
Exactly. It's where you build boundaries. It's where you learn to say, I can witness your pain and love you through it, but I don't have to become your pain to help you. That distinction is what makes a healer sustainable.
Without that work, you just burn out.
You get depleted. Compassion without boundaries leads to depletion. That's the quote.
Okay, so the point of all this isn't just to suffer. It's integration. It's sorting through everything and figuring out what's yours and what isn't.
Yes, but, and this is a huge, but DuBrall says the inward movement is not meant to be permanent.
The danger of staying in the deep end.
Right. If you stay down there forever, you stagnate. I think we all know people who are just constantly healing, always processing, but never actually, living.
The professional patient of their own life.
The goal is to integrate so you can return.
Mm-hmm.
And the text says once you do that work, the tide naturally turns. You don't even have to force it.
And when it comes back, this is my favorite part. You're not the same. The return is different.
You're fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the most complex, but I think most profound idea in the whole piece, the mirror.
The student becomes the mirror. The teacher is taught. I feel like I get that, but can we make it concrete? Like a real world example?
Okay, sure. Let's say you're a manager and you have an employee who is super disorganized, always late, messy desk, and you find yourself getting irrationally angry about it.
Okay, yep. I can picture it. I'm triggered.
So in the old flow mindset, you just try to fix them. You lecture them, you buy them a planner. You're the teacher, they're the student.
Right. I'm organized. They're the mess. I'm helping.
But the mirror concept flips that. It asks, why is their disorganization triggering you so much? Maybe their messiness is mirroring your own deep, desperate need for control. Maybe you're terrified that if you let go for 1 second, your own life will descend into chaos. So when you see them, you're not seeing them. You're seeing your own shadow, your own fear.
Wow. Okay. So the messy employee is actually teaching me something about my own control issues.
Exactly. And that's not a failure on your part. DuBrall says this is the design of the path. We think we're helping others, but often they are just revealing what's still unresolved in us.
That totally changes the whole dynamic of helping. It's not a hierarchy anymore. It's not, I'm fixed, you're broken. It's, we're both in this.
And you could only have that realization because you did the work in the descent. If you hadn't, you just get mad at the employee. Yeah. But now you can see the mirror and go, oh, that's my stuff.
So when the tide comes back in after that kind of work, it has a different quality. The text says it's quieter.
Quieter and steadier. Yeah. Before, your flow might have been a performance. Look at me helping. It was the big crashing wave.
I love that image. The wave does not crash onto the shore anymore. A crashing wave is impressive, but it's violent.
And it pulls back just as fast. The new wave, the post-descent wave, arrives steadily to meet what is ready to receive. It's embodied. You're not just repeating ideas from a book. You're speaking from what you've actually lived.
And there's a kind of detachment there too, right?
Yes. But let's be careful with that word. It's not detachment like, I don't care. It's non-attachment to the outcome.
Break that down.
Okay. Before the work, if you tried to help that messy employee and they didn't change, how would you feel?
frustrated, rejected, like I failed.
Because your ego was tied to them changing. After the descent, you know your worth isn't dependent on their transformation. You offer the help. If they're ready to receive it, great. If not, the wave recedes. You don't crash over them and force it.
Discernment has grown alongside compassion. You care, but you don't lose yourself in their outcome.
That's the ultimate freedom of the healer.
Yeah.
And that is the rhythm. It's not about getting to a place where you never feel pain again. DuBrall is so clear about it.
Which is a bit of a bummer, I'll be honest. I was kind of hoping for the transcendence package.
We all want that. We want the mountain peak. But what she offers is maybe more durable. She says the goal is to learn to meet pain honestly, again and again, without abandoning themselves.
Without abandoning themselves. That feels like the whole thing right there. Whether you're in the high tide or the low tide, you stay with yourself.
You trust the rhythm. You trust that when the tide goes out, it's not the end. It's just getting ready for the next wave.
This has really made me rethink my own, slump. I think I've spent a lot of my life trying to fight the ebb, just trying to hold the water on the shore.
It's exhausting trying to hold back the ocean.
Yeah.
And it prevents the very renewal you're looking for.
So I guess the thought I want to leave everyone with is this. We talked about that low hum, that whisper. You're feeling that right now? Maybe a little dread, a little friction. Just ask yourself, are you trying to stay in the flow when the tide is actually calling you to ebb?
And what might happen if instead of adding one more distraction, you just stopped? What if you let the tide go out and just trusted the rhythm?
It's a scary question, but maybe it's the only way to get to that real steady flow we're all looking for.
Trust the rhythm.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next wave.